Once again, welcome to the broadcast. I'm Jesse Rogers. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Meresha Owiti. Let's get you informed. Now, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta has come out boldly and hit out at his successor, President William Ruto, calling out his administration for condoning tribal rhetoric that risks plunging the country into chaos. The former head of state, who chaired the Kiambu County Jubilee delegates, has challenged the Kenya Kwanza administration to focus on addressing the plight of high cost of living instead of engaging in tribal bigotry. Jeff Kirui with a hard-hitting statement targeting President William Ruto and his administration.
Another political friction is brewing between retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and his successor, President William Ruto. The former head of state turning the heat on President Ruto for failing to tame his troops, especially UDA Secretary General Hassan Omar, who made disparaging tribal remarks targeting the Kikuyu community in his presence during a tour of Mombasa County over the weekend.
Na wana haya wakiongea haya, wanaongea haya mbele ya wakubwa wa nchi, na wanasimama na wanaongea mambo ya kuchochea, mambo ya kulete vita, mambo ya kugonganisha wa Kenya. Na hakuna mtu ambaye anasimama hapo kusema msiongee vile mnaongea. Wanaruhusiwa tu waongee yale ambao wanasema.
The retired president raised concern that the silence and failure by the head of state to reprimand Omar Hassan could be misconstrued to mean his endorsement of the inflammatory remarks. Uhuru, who spoke when he chaired Kiambu County Jubilee Party Delegates Convention, cautioned that the reckless remarks could plunge the country into turmoil.
Tuliyaona mwaka wa 2007. Tusifikiria kwamba hiyo mambo ilianza hapo hapo. Ilianza kwa maneno kama haya ambao watu wanaongea. Nawaomba viongozi wa serikali, naomba viongozi wa usalama wa nchi hii yetu ya Kenya, kama kwa ukweli mnapenda nchi yetu, msiruhusu mambo haya yaendelee.
A seemingly upset former head of state challenged President Ruto to address real issues facing Kenyans, such as the high cost of living occasioned by high fuel prices.
Haihitaji mtu awe ni mwerefu sana kujua shida iko wapi. Watu wanapiga kelele kwa sababu wanasema mshahara wangu kwa mwezi ni shilingi 20,000. Hiyo 20,800 inaenda kwa petroli peke yake, kwa matatu kuenda na kurudi nyumbani. 12,000 inaenda kwa nyumba ambaye nimekodesha. Nimebaki na 2,000 ya kulisha watoto wangu na kuwapeleka shule. Hiyo ndio shida, ongelesha shida. Hapana ongea mambo ya kabila na ya nini. Na kama unataka tusaidiane kutatua hiyo shida, semeni, tutatue hiyo.
Kila usiku mchana ni kulaumu watu. Na watu wakishindwa kazi wanaendelea namna hiyo, blaming other people, excuses kila siku. Lisemekana tulianza empty coffers, sijui nini inafanyika, sijui nini kila mwaka.
And as campaigns for next year's polls heat up, the former head of state was quick to remind Kenyans that choices have consequences and that they should not be gullible this time round.
Hiyo mambo sijui dynasty hustler imewaletea nini? Imewaletea nini? Imewaletea nini? Sasa mkuje muambiwe siasa ingine ya ukabila, itawaletea nini isipokuwa shida?
With approximately 1 year to the 2027 general election, the battle lines are drawn as retired President Uhuru Kenyatta steps back into the ring to actively rejuvenate his Jubilee Party to its former glory. Jeff Kirui, KTN.
Meanwhile, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission has strongly condemned the use of hate speech by politicians, saying it undermines national cohesion, democratic governance, as well as national stability. Speaking during a media briefing in Nairobi, the Commission's chairperson, Kefa Omai, said that all forms of hate speech, including ethnic contempt, political incitement, and violent rhetoric, irrespective of the political affiliation, social standing, or public profile of those responsible, and that the Commission will not be deterred by ranks, prominence, or political affiliation when discharging its mandate. Listen in.
The Commission appeals to the memory and conscience of every Kenyan. The peace of this nation is not given. It is built day by day through deliberate choices made by leaders and citizens alike. As the country navigates its current political terrain, the Commission calls for a decisive return to issues-based politics and not personality politics. Citizens deserve political discourse anchored in policy, governance, and the public good, not ethnicity, hatred, or fear. We call upon political parties to enforce internal discipline and ensure that their officials, candidates, and supporters adhere to constitutional and legal standards of conduct in all political activities and communications. Parties bear direct institutional responsibility for the conduct of their members.
Now, the Democracy for the Citizens Party leader, Rigathi Gachagua, has slammed UDA Secretary General Hassan Omar over his recent remarks at the peak of fuel hike protests, which were perceived to be targeting residents of the vast Mount Kenya region. Rigathi Gachagua, who just jetted back into the country from the United Kingdom, faulted President William Ruto's silence of the matter. As Ian Keitani now reports, the former deputy president poked holes into President William Ruto's security detail following yesterday's incident in Kilifi County, calling for the dismissal of Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen.
Sentiments by UDA Secretary General Hassan Omar during the recent nationwide fuel strike demonstrations, during which he accused sections of the transport sector of bias and rust, have continued to draw condemnation from far and beyond, including from his own party members. DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua has joined the fray, blasting the UDA Secretary General and his party leader President William Ruto. A tough-talking Gachagua cautioned the head of state and his troops over ethnic profiling.
We want to reject in total the attempt by Hassan Omar to apologize to the people of the mountain for inciting Kenyans against them. Hassan Omar is your Secretary General for UDA. What he is saying is your script.
Gachagua's remarks comes amid rising political temperatures with barely 15 months before the next general election. The DCP chief urging Kenyans to remain firm and not be divided by inciting utterances.
I want to ask the mountain people not to buy fear and not to be intimidated. This is their country. They belong here. They pay taxes. They own land. And the Constitution protects them to stay anywhere.
Barely 24 hours after elapsing President William Ruto's security in Kilifi County, after a man evaded the presidential security personnel and ran up to the president, wrapping his hand around him, the former second-in-command has raised concerns over the head of state's security.
He has a CS interior who is naive, childish, and juvenile. This ministry is too serious for such a childish minister. How can Murkomen guarantee the safety of the ordinary Kenyans if he cannot guarantee the security of his appointing authority? The president of Kenya, no matter how unpopular he is, must be safe. And he must be properly protected. We want William Ruto to be alive and to be well. We want to have the opportunity to humiliate him in the ballot.
The former deputy has laid blame squarely on Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen, calling for his ouster.
We don't want instability ahead of the elections. You must do the right thing. You must fire Murkomen and get somebody who is level-headed, somebody who knows what he's doing. That since Murkomen became the CS Interior, this country now is run by goons. You cannot tell the difference between goons and police officers.
Ian Keitani for Ktn Prime.
Now, serious questions have emerged following Sunday's security breach involving Kenya's head of state after a man out-tweeted the president's inner security circle and managed to grab the country's commander-in-chief. Authorities have not publicly disclosed the identity or motive of the man at the center of the dramatic breach in Ganze, Kilifi County, but the incident has already triggered radical changes among the officers guarding the president. Tonight, our security affairs reporter Francis Ontomwa takes a deep dive into the complex world of presidential security examining how the commander-in-chief is protected and why the new man at the helm may now have to roll up his sleeves.
The dramatic moment in Ganze Kilifi lasted only a few seconds, but it has since triggered major security repercussions. A man carrying a Bible emerges from the crowd and with what appears to be sheer ease, rushes towards the podium where the president is speaking.
That is a very, very serious concern from a security standpoint. You know, the president, whether we like him or not, is a symbol of national unity.
The incident, now widely circulated online, has sparked debate over just how secure Kenya's head of state truly is during public engagements. Protecting a sitting president involves multiple layers of security, all operating simultaneously. In public spaces like rallies especially, the outer ring, comprised mostly of uniformed officers, focuses mostly on crowd control, surveillance, and route security. The middle layer consists of tactical officers, intelligence personnel, and advanced teams monitoring suspicious movement. Then comes the innermost circle, elite close protection officers positioned only steps away from the head of state. This is a group of highly trained officers specializing on close combat, and their primary mission being to protect the head of state from any immediate threat and evacuate him within seconds if danger emerges.
Where the president is, there's no mess, no single mess. That's the rule of the law as far as presidential escort is concerned.
Kenya's Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja has termed the breach unacceptable and a matter of grave national concern. And within hours, the incident has already triggered radical changes within the president's inner security team. Out goes veteran Presidential Escort Unit Commander Noah Mayo, who has held the position for 2 years, and in comes William Sawe, another highly trained officer drawn from the feared Reke squad.
Nearly all officers are from one community where the president comes from. All other officers from other communities are very demoralized, and they are never given an opportunity to escort the president around. Escorting the president around comes with privileges and allowances. All officers from other communities don't leave the camp. It's only officers from the president's community that guard him.
If that guy had a syringe with some kind of poison with an intent of killing the president, by the time those guys had gotten to him to pull him away from the president, he could have done his job, you know. And once that is done and the president is in trouble, whether you kill the guy or not, he will have done his what? A job. He will have caused a lot of pain to the president's family, he will have caused a lot of confusion to the nation.
It is a full-time job for the men and women guarding the country's foremost citizen, and a difficult balancing act between keeping the president accessible to the public while constantly shielded from danger. And while no harm was done in Ganze, the incident has exposed just how quickly a routine public appearance can turn into a high-stakes security scare for the country's most protected office. Francis Ontomoa, KTN.
Moving on, sections of the Mount Kenya region woke up to a paralyzing strike by Matatu operators and other players in the public transport sector, despite last week's announcement that the nationwide strike had been called off. The protests, which transport stakeholders say were driven by the high cost of fuel and the rising cost of living, left major towns deserted today. Businesses closed and thousands of commuters stranded. Our reporter filed the following report.
As early as 6 in the morning, tension was already building across parts of the Mount Kenya region. In Karatina town, youth lit bonfires along the Nairobi-Nyeri highway, bringing transport to a standstill as Matatu operators and other players in the transport sector enforced the strike. The demonstrations came as a surprise to many residents after transport stakeholders last week announced that they had called off their planned industrial action following talks with the president. However, operators in the Mount Kenya region insisted that little had changed on the ground, saying the high cost of fuel continues to strain the operations and push ordinary Kenyans to the edge.
Tunataka diesel irudi 150 na petro irudi 170. Hapo sasa kila mtu atakuwa ametosheka kwa sababu hata abiria hataumia.
Mgomo na kila mtu sio watu ya matatu. Kila mtu ndio mwenye mgomo, sio mtu ya matatu. Hawa walikuwa ni matopeli tu sijui ni wa kikosi gani.
Commuters were left stranded, with many forced to walk long distances as transport services ground to a complete halt.
Tuliona rais ambaye alikuwa makamu wa rais beleni, naibu wa rais beleni, akisema kuwa vita haiwezi kuwa ndio chanzo cha kuongezwa kwa mafuta. Na kwa wakati wake sasa, yeye anatuambia ile kitu alisema sio problem ndio imekuja. Kwa nini sasa tumuamini saa hii?
Nilikuja asubuhi na shida nyingi sana juu nilikuwa nahitajika kotini by saa 3. Na nilikuja na shida nyingi sana kwa sababu usafiri umekuwa na shida. Tumekuta watu wameakisha mioto, lakini nikiangalia naona ya kwamba hii shida ni sababu tulichagua serikali iko na masikio lakini haitusikizi.
For better part of the day, business activities in most towns remained paralyzed. Shops stayed closed, markets remained deserted, and transport terminals were nearly empty as fear of possible clashes kept many people indoors.
Tumechoka sana. There's no need of coming here to and fro. Watoto hawasomi, watu hawaendi kwa soko, watu wa matatu hawaendi.
Sielewi kwa nini maneno ya EPLA president pia amekuja kuongea ati yeye atajadiliana na watu fulani na waangushe bei. Kazi ambayo tunajua ni ya EPLA.
The same situation was reported in other towns including Embu and Nyahururu, where transport services were disrupted for hours. The development now added to growing concerns over the Mount Kenya region, emerging as one of the country's most volatile hotspots during demonstrations and industrial actions. In recent months, protests in the region have frequently escalated into highway blockades, business shutdowns, and looting of properties.
Nataka kumwambia Bwana Rigathi Gachagua, you cannot escape the blame of all the chaos and the mayhem that is going on in your backyard. For a very long time, you are the one who has been inciting young people. You have been telling them that they need to classify others as enemies of the community because they don't bow down to you.
Clement Masombo, KTN.
Now, there's huge misinformation and disinformation among members of the public in regards to certain proposals within the 2026 finance bill. According to Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Badi, there's an imminent risk of politicizing the document, even as public participation closed today on the bill. KTN's Noah Kipkimboy with the details.
Just a day after Kalonzo Musyoka asked Kenyans to reject the finance bill,
reject finance bill 2026-2027 because sasa introduce quietly leasehold.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary fired back, saying that he's peddling false information.
Because I know he knows that is lying. Why would he lie to the people of Kenya that Finance Bill 2026 contains such a provision and it is not there? That is irresponsible politics.
But to clarify on the tax proposals, the CS noted that 25% excise duty on mobile phones is not meant to increase mobile phone prices, but to simplify and rationalize the taxes.
You bring the phone, there is no tax, there is no charges, there is no levy. But the time the phone is bought and is being activated is when you pay one single tax, that is excise duty at 25%. Tell me how that makes phones more expensive than the current arrangement.
The introduction of reporting framework for virtual asset transactions in the finance bill is set to fill existing gaps within the current legal framework in the fast-growing sector.
And anything new, and it is producing revenue and producing income, must also be subjected to tax in the spirit of fairness and equity.
For card payment fees, the bill proposes the expansion of professional fees to include interchange fees and merchant service fees.
It would have been very easy to just tax them, but the court made a determination that the interchange fee does not fall within royalty and management and professional fee. Therefore, we are bringing them into that definition to remove that ambiguity so that when they make money out of this platform that they're giving to the banks, then they would pay.
Kenya's private sector has, however, pushed back on this.
Taxing digital processing triggers a cascading tax effect that increases transaction costs and the cost of doing business. Furthermore, A withholding proposal explicitly attempts to legislatively reverse the Supreme Court of Kenya's decision, Barclays Bank of Kenya, now EPSA versus the Commissioner of Domestic Tax, because there is precedence in that ruling.
While presenting private sector's consolidated position and recommendations on the Finance Bill 2026 to the National Assembly's Finance Committee, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance noted that Kenya's economy has structural vulnerabilities that will not withstand some of the proposals within the bill.
We must avoid measures that unintentionally will burden formal retail, MSMEs, digital commerce, and already strained households.
We've seen a lot of taxation introduced on inputs. One is the excise duty, and two is the export investment promotion levy. And our proposal is we need to remove taxation on raw materials.
Our packaging material for local manufacturing or pharmaceuticals has an excise duty, and that's what we would want removed.
But invoicing for school fees via items is a logistical nightmare for schools. And so what we were asking was, what we've asked for is to be exempted from invoicing through that.
Parliament concluded public participation today, after which the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning will prepare a report from the public feedback and table it at the National Assembly, recommending whether to retain, amend, or scrap specific tax proposals. Noakip Kimboi, KTN.
Well, as Noakip Kimboi highlighted, public participation on the finance bill has concluded. But mind you, Parliament resumes tomorrow after a 3-week recess. So among the issues of focus will be the finance bill, the cost of fuel in the country, among other issues that circumvent the cost of living. I'll be hosting parliamentarians at 10 p.m. So we'll be canvassing that issue plus plenty more. Stay tuned. We take a short break right now. You're watching Ktn Prime. We'll be back in a few. Keep it right here. Welcome back to Ktn Prime. Thanks for keeping it right here. Let's continue informing you. Now, President William Ruto continued his tour of the coast region in Kilifi on Monday, while Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki held a public engagement in Kisii County as part of the government's nationwide grassroots outreach. The parallel visits underscored the administration's focus on combining development delivery with political mobilization ahead of the 2027 general election. Elvis Koskei with the details.
In Mariakani, President Ruto commissioned the Mariakani substation and flagged off the last-mile electricity connectivity aimed at expanding power access to households in the area. The projects form part of the government's push to boost industrial activity and improve living standards in the coast region. Speaking at the event, Ruto emphasized what he termed the politics of development, saying the government will prioritize service delivery over divisive politics.
Tumekubaliana na Mung'aro ametoa milioni 35. Mimi nimemuongezea milioni 50. Maji hapa kwenu hii, maji yote hii nimeambia wanajeshi. Nimesikia. Nimewaambia wanajeshi tutumie wanajeshi wakuje walete hiyo maji ndani ya miezi 4. Nataka mkunywe maji hapa. Tuachane na mambo hiyo, matatizo ya maji.
Wakati wa kampeni niliahidi kapa. Rais amenipatia eka 10 hapo Karlo kuingia SGR tujenge stage ya malori ili watu wetu wafanye biashara hapo.
Serikali imenunua mashamba katika jimbo la Pwani kuwafukuza mabwanyenye, wananchi wapate mashamba.
The president also addressed long-standing concerns in the region, promising concrete steps to resolve land disputes and improve water supply for residents.
Nimesema hizo mashamba sasa sikatekatwe ndani ya siku 90. Title deeds 200,000 tunakuja kupatiana hapa watu wa Pwani waishi kama wa Kenya wengine. Mnasema tuendelee ama tuendelee? Kwa bank ukope pesa ukiwa na hati miliki uweze kuendesha maisha yako, ujisikie wewe ni Mkenya kama wa Kenya wengine.
Elsewhere in the county of Kisii, Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki dismissed allegations that the government was planning to rig the 2027 polls.
Condone the language of election interference. Ourselves, we are products of a free and fair election in 2022. Kama ile tume ya uchaguzi haikuwa na haki na huru, Rais Ruto na sisi zote hatungekuwa ofisini.
Kindiki argued that investments in roads, electricity connectivity, affordable housing, agriculture, healthcare and education reforms will form basis of the government's re-election campaign.
Mboga kufanya biashara tunajenga, barabara za lami tunajenga, stima inaendelea, mashule kama haya tunajenga. Hiyo ni kazi si kazi? Ni kazi si kazi?
Elvis Kosgei, KTN.
ODM party leader Oburu Oginga has declared that he will defend his Siaya Senate seat in the 2027 general election. Speaking during the ODM Nyanza Region Aspirants Convention in Kisumu, Oburu Oginga urged leaders to focus on service delivery, unity and grassroots mobilization ahead of the 2027 polls, assuring party aspirants that ODM nominations will be free and fair. The veteran politician further defended the ongoing discussions around political zoning.
Parties are still free to field their candidates against our candidates, and in this region of Nyanza, we are ready for them. Let those other parties come. But what we are saying is that this region of ours is zoned for ODM. It is zoned because it is zoned only between UDA and ODM. That's where ODM is strong, like our area here, UDA will not field their candidates. But nominations within our party will be free and fair. So when we are talking of zoning, it is not zoning with Gachago or whatever. How do you call him? How do you call that party? Jesus? I don't know whether whatever. So when we are not zoning with Martha Karwa, I heard her also talking about zoning. So, Martha, we are not interested in zoning with you. You can zone with whoever you want.
Two other stories making headlines. Mounting grief and frustration was palpable today at the Kenyatta National Hospital as the horrifying last moments of two 19-year-olds from Maroroi and Githurai were tearfully narrated by their loved ones. Human rights defender Hussein Khalid claimed that 17 people across the country died and 30 others left to nurse injuries for simply voicing their grievances. Marion Barasa reports.
19-year-old Prudence Imali left her house for an ordinary run to the nearby shop for a liter of cooking oil on Monday 18th. Little did her loved ones know it will be the last time they would see her alive. A quick trip that was meant to take a few minutes resulted in a single bullet piercing the air.
Mimi niko na huzuni sana kumpoteza mtoto wangu ambaye nilikuwa nampenda, ambaye alikuwa atanisaidia siku za usoni. Kwa maana baba alikufa akaniachia wakiwa wadogo sana. Sasa mimi nilikuwa natarajia huyu mtoto, lakini sasa kifo yake imekuwa kifo kingine ambacho cha kushtua.
Postmortem investigations conducted at Kenyatta National Hospital morgue shed light on her final moments.
And the postmortem has confirmed that she died due to excessive bleeding as a result of a single gunshot yenye iliingia kwa shingo na ikatoka huku nyuma. On its way, it perforated the right lung and it broke two ribs.
Prudence, a fourth born in a family of 5, was not part of the fuel protest. She was simply a normal resident, dashing for household necessities. Her family, deeply overwhelmed by a sense of betrayal by the very institutions sworn to protect them, ponder over what went wrong on Monday 18th.
This thing on media, and I have never known it's true until when it has hit us.
Mungu sana, naomba haki ya mtoto wangu.
naomba tu haki.
Kama ni IPOA, tunaomba tafadhali IPOA mfanye kazi yenu kulingana na venye mnajua, tuharakishe tupate haki.
A similar tale of gone too soon is recounted for a family in Githurai whose 19-year-old kin Kevin Mulili succumbed to possible police beatings and died in Kenyatta National Hospital.
Hapo mtoto anaanza kufungana, siwi ni damu inataka kutoka, na ile madaktari wanaambia ita huyo. Na hako tu hapo. Haya, mgonjwa mwenye alikuwa next akakuja akaangaliwa picha yake. Huyo mwenye alikuwa na mgonjwa akamwambia, "Si uniangalia hata huyu jirani wangu, hata na yeye aridhike." Hawataki kushughulika. Mpaka mtoto anakufa tu kama ndiko na yeye tu hapo. Nishalipa 14,000, hakuna kitu imeendelea. Ndio mbaya sana.
The death of the late Prudence Imali and Kevin Mulili point to a wider pattern of police brutality deployed on Monday 18th. According to human rights defenders on the ground, at least 17 people in different parts across the country were killed and 30 others left to nurse injuries sustained from gunfire. Marian Barasa, KTN.
Well, we say, Paula, to the families, justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. Now, a family in Nakuru is demanding justice after their 13-year-old son was injured by a stray bullet during last Monday's protest by Matatu operators. Joseph Njuguna, who was hospitalized for several days, was injured by a bullet that struck him on the cheek while inside their home in the Free Area Estate, as Ken Gashuhi now details.
Joseph Njuguna, grade 7 pupil at Madaraka Primary School, Nakuru County, is nursing a gunshot wound on his right cheek, sustained last Monday during anti-fuel prices demonstrations. Njuguna was playing with other children inside their compound when police officers fired at protesters at Free Area Estate just next to their home.
Watoto wakiwa hapa ndani, mimi nikakuwa ninaenda kuchuna mboga na mama jirani yangu hapo. Nikasikia amepiga nduru, akaniambia, "Si kuja uangalie mtoto kama ni risasi amepigwa." Sasa mimi kupenduka nikiwa hapo kwa shamba nikaona mtoto anamwaga damu kama ameshikiliwa na mwenzake.
Njuguna underwent surgery at Nakuru Level 5 Hospital to remove the bullet that had been lodged under his skin. He returned his home with an unexpected scar, causing him pain and psychological trauma.
Akilala anaanza kuamuka kutoroka, ilimwathiri kimawazo.
The family has reported the incident at Mwareki Police Station and to the Independent Policing Oversight Authority IPOA, and is now calling on the government to ensure justice is served for Njuguna.
Nikaenda Mwareki, wakaandika statement, alafu wakakuja hadi hapa nyumbani. Mimi mtoto wangu hakuwa kwa maandamano, ilimkuta nyumbani. Sasa kwa hivyo mimi ningependa tu haki ya mtoto wangu ipatikane.
Human rights organization IMLU reports that 7 people lost their lives in separate incidents during the protest in Molo, Naivasha and Nakuru town, while 10 others sustained gunshot injuries.
They should maintain what we call public order management in Nakuru County. Ni kama watu zaidi ya 7.
Ken Gashuhi, KTN.
Now, county governments have been challenged to develop effective accountability mechanisms that will enable residents to assess their performance while in office. This emerged during a courtesy call made by the Standard Group CEO, Chacha Mwita, to the office of the Vihiga Governor, Dr. Wilbur Tichilo. Bramwell Bwire with that report.
Vihiga Governor Wilbur Tichilo says the county administration is currently reviewing the County Integrated Development Plan aimed at evaluating the achievements of his second term in office between 2023 and 2027.
We are reviewing our County Integrated Development Plan for 2023 to 2027, and we shall be reporting to the people of Vihiga what we have been able to do and what is remaining and what direction we will take before I conclude my term.
The governor also addressed the issue of pending bills, revealing that his administration has significantly reduced inherited debts amounting to 2 billion shillings, leaving a balance of 150 million shillings.
As a county, we have done fairly well. When I came in, inherited a pending bill of over 2 billion shillings, but I'm happy to report that to date we are paid most of those pending bills. The historical pending bills now, we only have 150 million to pay.
Standard Media Group Chief Executive Officer Chacha Mwita emphasized the importance of strategic partnership between media organizations and county governments in promoting accurate, balanced and independent reporting.
We've had a wonderful working relationship with Vihiga County over the years. And as a new Chief Executive Officer of Standard Group, I wanted to make Vihiga a priority destination for me in terms of cultivating relationships between the media and government. But I have also admired Governor Tichilo for quite some time. As you heard back in the boardroom, he's a natural scientist and he has brought that approach to Vihiga County. And without having to preempt anything, I read widely and I look at things widely, and I want to say that I'm impressed by the work that the governor is doing, and we have a meeting of minds of sorts, and that is why I prioritized this particular county in my western region trip.
This is the first visit Chacha Mwita is making in the region since his confirmation as the Standard Group Chief Executive Officer. Bramwell Bwire, Ktn, Vihiga.
Well, that report by Bramwell Bwire leads us to a short commercial break right here on Ktn Prime. But as we do that, let's take you through what you'll be waking up to tomorrow in Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard. At least the headline, which will be centered on Stop Blame Game and Work. It's all to do with scapegoating. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta tore into President William Ruto's administration, accusing it of ignoring the suffering of Kenyans while fanning tribal divisions and political distractions as the fuel crisis deepens. In a blistering attack before Jubilee delegates in Kiambu, Uhuru Kenyatta said the Kenya Kwanza regime had abandoned its mandate and instead turned to blame games, praise singing, and dangerous ethnic rhetoric as households buckle under soaring fuel prices and a punishing cost of living. Backed by former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, Uhuru Kenyatta warned that divisive politics risk dragging the country back to the dark days of 2007. Page 4 will have more details on that, but we've quoted the former head of state saying, and I'll quote him verbatim, "You insulted me and told me that you knew and understood what you were doing. Eventually, you elected praise and worship men and women whose job is to sing praises to the current leadership while forgetting their mandate to work for you. You must now reflect after seeing the effects of your decision." I think he was referring to the population who had gathered for that delegates meeting, even as they reflected on the voting choices of the larger Mount Kenya region. That story plus plenty more encompassed in tomorrow's edition of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard. Do make sure you grab yourself a copy. We take a short break right now. Business News is up next.
Good evening, welcome back to KTN Prime. My name is Kelly Boss and this is KTN Business Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, in a major milestone for Kenya's capital and housing markets today, the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, KMRC, has officially listed its 3 billion shilling sustainability bond on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The investors couldn't scramble fast enough to get a piece of it. The listing, which represents tranche 2 of KMRC's 10.5 billion midterm note program, attracted 9.38 billion in investor applications to record a 312% oversubscription rate. NCBA Bank acted as the lead arranger and placing agent, steering the deal to the finish line.
This bond has been 3 times oversubscribed, and had we extended time, would have been many times oversubscribed. As per my earlier remarks, I mean, it all depends on the strength of the issuer, that they're well liked by this market. Of course, the structure, the tax-exempt nature of it was very attractive.
This is a sustainability bond, and that cuts into green as well as the social. Now, at least 30% of what we are raising goes into green, and the difference, of course, is part of the social that we are covering. And the social we are talking about here is actually supporting people at the lower end who are disproportionately affected. They never necessarily get mortgages when they need, because of course they are considered higher risk by financial institutions. But the blending nature of this transaction helps to push financing down to make it a lot more affordable.
The successful issuance and listing of the 3 billion shilling sustainability note, which is the first sustainability bond in Kenya's domestic capital market, actually signals a decisive shift in how we mobilize capital to finance our development priorities.
Now, to help protect people's money and curb online scammers within the digital finance space, stakeholders in Binance say they are working closely with the governments and regulators across Africa. Speaking during the Africa Day celebrations, the players emphasized the need for stronger digital safety measures, public awareness, and policy support to ensure users feel safe and confident when using financial technology services.
It's about the people. If we cannot protect people's money, if we cannot earn the trust of our users, then we are basically doing nothing. So they are the center of what we are building, the center of every activity that we do. And that also includes working with regulators, working with governments, working with the police to ensure that people feel safe whenever they are using Binance and interacting with Binance.
Because every time we talk about money, we are talking about lives. In the same way, when we talk about water, it's all about lives. So the thought of doing this campaign to bring safe water so that the communities can be able to access safe water is an amazing idea. And I really want to encourage other organizations and other people, well-wishers, who can be able to embrace what Binance is doing so that they can be able to impact lives.
Now, in agriculture, coffee policymakers, local growers, and international buyers will converge in Nairobi for the inaugural Kenya Coffee Hub International Convention. The gathering will push to break away from the traditional way of exporting low-value raw beans, seeking instead to transform Nairobi into a globally competitive coffee innovation and roasting hub.
It's a product that is a policy-driven, whereby you find that there are very many regulations that are also affecting the component of coffee as a bean. You find that there are very many regulations that are coming from the EU, other regulations that are coming from various vast regulators, apart from even within our own country, but also outside. And the reason as to why you find that there is that bureaucracies, it's because what is measured? Is it the regulations that are going to be measured that it's price effective, or is it just the regulations that are going to bar the consumers from not taking up the coffee?
This is the high time that as Kenya, we are supposed to add value to our agricultural produce. That is the only way out. Kenyans can be able to achieve value for their daily work.
Still in agriculture, Kenya's multi-billion shilling floriculture sector across the country have started downsizing their workforce due to the rising cost of fuel, coupled with the Middle East crisis that has affected shipping of flowers. Now, according to the Agricultural Employers Association, that's the AEA, the affected farms had involved the redundancy process due to the rising cost of production.
We have received letters requesting for us to process the redundancies in the farms, and I think this is not a time when things should be taken like business as usual.
General operational costs for the last 6-7 years, we are looking at about 40% increase in our operational costs. That, coupled with the fact that the prices in the market are now going up, in fact, we are facing more challenges.
There's been the introduction of a UCR fee, which is a unique consignment reference fee for each unique consignment that you ship out of Kenya, and this started 2 years ago. It's a fee that's imposed for using the KenTrade portal, so there's no additional value. Before, there was just a transaction fee. Now you pay $10 on top of the transaction fee.
All they're saying is slow down on the levies, slow down on the additional taxes. Let's have support as opposed to having a challenge meeting our demands in the market, because price is fixed.
Well, that story right there does it for KTN Business Prime, but KTN Prime continues with Jesse Rogers.